Tagged out.
We're all done.
It smells like grizzly bear to me.
Did we forget those wipes?
We're sitting here with Gary Stewart. He's a seasoned Alaskan guide. We're talking moose hunting. Moose season is coming quickly for us. So it is my pleasure to give you guys one of the best moose guides that I know of and have him kind of explain some of his strategies for you guys that are looking to kind of maybe do your first DIY moose hunt. Maybe you're going on a guided moose hunt, or maybe you're trying to plan one for the future. Gary is an awesome reference point, and he's going to share a little bit with us. So, Gary, give us a little bit of your background. Give us a little bit of who you are, kind of where you came from, and how you got into guiding, and then we'll talk moose.
All right. Well, glad to be here. Gary Stewart from Missouri. Grew up there. Grew up whitetail hunting, duck hunting. Basically, if there was a season for it, I tried it. And always wanted to be a guide. That was something that's just always was in my dreams. And at 23 years old, I had an opportunity. We met, and you got me into it, and here we are, like 15 years later.
Yeah.
So, moose is quite the passion. And it's something that we all love to do here, bushwhack, and it's fun, man. Like, there's nothing better than having a bull right in your face at 15 yards, and you're just like, when you lay one down, it's just an amazing sight to walk up onto them.
Yeah, it's we've seen some, and we've filmed some awesome videos of bulls doing that. What is your first piece of advice for somebody maybe that's on their first moose hunt? Like, where would you have somebody start? Somebody that's maybe done some whitetail hunting or some elk hunting out west. What maybe just give us an idea of where you would start if you walked into somewhere maybe that you didn't know before, that you hadn't hunted before. What are you looking for, or what's your kind of game plan if you're going into a new area?
So you're going to be looking for marsh a lot of times, or lakes, and woods. Foresty stuff. That's where they're going to like to be, where they have some moisture, swampy, wet rivers, lakes. That's where they're going to be spending a lot of time. The bulls will spend their summers up high, but they're going to head down there.
Why do they head down?
For the rut.
The rut.
They're in their summer grounds up high. Then they're going to roll down as the rut kicks on. They're going to move, and they're going to go more to where the cows are going to want to be and hanging out, which they tend to stay lower in the elevation where there's easier food, and they'll roll down to them. And so, there's a couple differences in spots that you could be in. You could be where they want to be. You can find them where they are, and then you can find them on their travel routes, because they're going to be coming out of the mountains, out of the high country. And they're going to be heading down to the rivers, down to the lower lakes. That kind of country is where they're going to want to be. So if you're on a path for that, you'll get a lot of bulls moving through.
Okay.
If you're in the high country, that's more spot and stalk, where you find a bull, you're going to need to just go ahead and go after him. Because he's not on the move yet. He's still in a summer ground doing his summer things. And then the low stuff is generally thick, that marshy, hang on it's real thick stuff. You can pull them out of that, but it's.
And when you say pull them out of it, what are you talking about?
Hanging out in the timber.
Okay.
So you're pulling them out of the timber,
like calling them out.
Calling them out.
Okay, yep. Calling them out.
Yep, because the moose are extremely susceptible to calling.
Okay.
Like, very easy.
Where do you start? Because do you start if you're going in there? Is there certain signs you look for, certain sounds you look for? Do you have a certain pattern that you do with calling, that you start maybe grunting, or do you start raking, or do you cow call? Like, what do you have something that you do all the time, or do you just kind of, it varies by situation?
It varies by situation, but I've kind of developed a method that I like, to where, the night before season starts, and I don't do it too soon. Because I don't want to accidentally call a bull in before the season starts.
Right.
You call them in once, and that's all you're going to get. So right before...
That's important to know. So what he just said is very important. If you call a bull in once, that may be the only time he comes in. He may not hang out again. So it's very important to take advantage of that. Just something to add in, because I've seen from our DIY hunters that come through, that's a mistake that I often hear them making. Is they're like, hey, I just called in a bull. Now I didn't work out. What do I do now? So anyway, that's good to know.
Yeah, and so the night before the hunt starts, I'll
Mhm.
do some cow calls right at dusk.
Okay.
Do a few cow calls just to really like get some attention from a bull that might be right in earshot.
Okay.
And they'll work through that. They'll work through the night looking for, trying to find where that cow was. And that's one thing about moose is you make cow call. And it's
Mhm.
this big open space, and the next morning you make one sound, and the bull steps out right there. Like they know where you're
So
calling
you
from.
don't know, you don't see him, you don't hear him, you don't know anything until he steps out.
Right, and
Basically.
that's the thing about moose calling. They're not a bull elk. You're not going to hear them from a mile away.
That's a good thing to know.
They're very very quiet comparatively.
That's another mistake that I see made. Sorry to cut you off, but there's a lot of guys that have experience calling bull elk, and they think it's a rundown and chase thing. It's this interactive thing, and moose hunting is a lot more tactful, and moose don't scream back at you like bull elk do. So guys get antsy and they move around too much and they call too much like they would with a bull elk, and it's really hurts their situation in moose country. So keep going, Gary.
Yeah, so like one thing about calling moose is you don't know it's working until it does. I mean, depending upon where you're at, if you can see or if you're down low in the timber. I've had instances where I've called for a lot of days, and then all of a sudden you hear one coming and you hear that soft grunting, or you hear
give us an example. Like when you say like soft grunting or cow calling, can you give us a little bit of an example and maybe walk through some of your stuff? I talked a little bit the other day about like raking a little bit, but I didn't get too far into it with methodology. So
yeah, and so this is my call. I've had it for a lot of years. You can tell it's been patched up from being beaten around. This is my favorite call I've used, and good luck finding one of these. But anyway, so this acts as a megaphone and a scraper all in one. I got something in here just to kind of dull the vibrations in it, so it sounds more realistic. But there's a couple ways to use this for raking, and it all kind of depends upon the situation. So when you're trying to really kind of get an animal to come in and get into that, because like there's a type of calling I do, very aggressive calling as I'm trying to get a bull like in the area, and then as I hear him and he's working, then I get very calm because and very soft, and make him curious and make him want to come in and make him feel like he's the big boy, because you can over
you're kind of
exaggerate.
enticing him in
Yeah,
and creating that curiosity, like you said, where
because you can also like you can scare away pretty nice bulls by going over the top, because they may, you don't know what they may have been in a fight with a bigger bull, and so like I don't want to get beat up again,
right?
So they're gonna kind of be shy. But as soon as you hear them, which is generally you're gonna hear them within 400 yards, not too much further than that, that's when you're gonna really
what are you listening for? Can you give
you're
us
listening
an example?
for grunts, which is more kind of like a and then you're also listening for raking, just what the same sound you're making with one of these, where you're beating the bushes, beating the trees,
An antler sound
on a tree. And then also like a banging, like a because they'll hit trees as they're coming in, just really just trying to make themselves heard, and so it's like almost like a drum. Then there'll be kind of a rhythm to it sometimes as well, but you'll hear that and it'll be faint, and then you just kind of keep working it. And but yeah, and generally they're grunting, and then they'll stop and rake and then listen, and then that's when you reply with a couple soft rakes. And at that point I don't run a whole lot, just because it's hard to mimic the volume that they have. Like we can hear their grunts, but they're not very loud. But moose have about a foot long ear, and then they have their giant paddles that are concentrating all that sound into their ears, so they can hear
like
much
big satellite
better.
dishes, essentially. Big hearing.
Yeah,
rated for
just
hearing.
like at the sport games where they have the microphones with the satellite
the
on
big
them.
dish on
Yeah,
it.
the
Yeah,
big
they're
dish.
literally designed to hear the tiniest sound. So it sounds like Gary's kind of explaining moose hunting is often done with your ears. A moose operates based on his and her ears, and then if you're wanting to hunt them effectively, you have to use your hearing and your ears as well to really engage and understand how moose hunting works. So that's really interesting.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
No, and it's pretty fascinating because bulls will hear you from a long ways away,
Mm.
and it may just take them a couple days before they
Yeah, a
decide
couple
that.
days.
Yeah, a
Where
couple
if you're elk
days.
hunting, if you wait a couple minutes and you move on and you go to the next ridge and you call. Moose hunting is a couple days. Bulls may act on it based on weather
Right.
conditions or rut
Or just
conditions. Or,
they'll sit up there on they'll might be sitting on the hill for a couple days. They're hearing you, but
yeah,
then like you wake up the next morning and you hear them grunting outside your tent.
yeah, it's
That's
happened to
happened more
me.
than
Yeah,
once.
yeah, it's
And
happened to me.
I've also had it where I saw a bull in the morning. I'm calling. He's down on some super thick stuff
Mm-hmm.
where I'm never gonna find him.
Right.
On a riverbank, and you know, midnight, I hear him walking by the tents grunting.
Mm.
There's nothing you can do about it, but they come in when they want to come in,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just a matter of getting them worked up.
What about cow calling, Gary? Because you can call bulls in with grunts and rakes, but you are a really, really good cow caller. What advice do you have for someone that's never done any of this, never called before? Do you have certain methods when you're cow calling, maybe certain timing? I know one thing that I generally practice, because I'm not a very good cow caller, is I usually wait until I hear natural cows, actual real cow moose calling themselves, and then I'll try to mimic them. But do you go out of your way to make cow sounds during that in some of that country, even if you haven't seen any? Or
Yeah, I do.
okay,
And I focus my cow calling very first thing in the morning, like
okay.
at dawn, lights, sun's not even over the ridge.
So you're not calling all day, or are you?
It depends upon when I'm at in the season. So to
Okay.
begin with, cow calling first thing in the morning, may and like last thing in the evening before like as like we
Mm-hmm.
get back to camp and the sun's going
Mm-hmm.
down. And then maybe once more later in the evening, like right before I like hit the bed, take a leak and do
Yeah,
one
yeah,
last cow call. And just because that's when their moose are most active, dawn and dusk.
yeah,
Right?
yeah. I found that out too.
And so they'll be out during the day, but it just depends. But yeah, I focus then. But as the rut goes on, bulls are getting ruddier.
Mm-hmm.
It's getting cooler, and we're running out of time to get a bull to come
Mm-hmm.
in. I'll start throwing out random cow calls throughout the day, followed by some very aggressive raking and grunting because they're very territorial. They hear another bull
So
calling
you're
to
cow
that.
calling and raking. So you're mimicking a cow and a bull at the same
Right,
time.
right,
All
and
right.
that's the thing, and it's not the first part of the hunt. Normally, I'm just cow calling in the morning, and then I'm raking, grunting,
Mm-hmm.
making noise, and then that's the thing too. To kind of go off on a little bit of a tangent
Mm-hmm.
is in some spots I'll work around like the first couple days. I'll make a
Okay.
big circle
Okay.
calling
Yeah.
and spreading that sound around. And then as the hunt goes on, I'll tighten my circle.
Mm.
I'll tighten my zone to where I want them to be. Like kind of in the middle of all that, and that way, there might be a hill there that the sound's not getting over as much,
Yeah.
or there might be, so you're just trying to kind of corral it in.
Yeah, that's really
And
interesting. Yeah,
um,
you're mimicking like a natural moose's movement and kind of how they do it between lake. If you're in a little series of lakes or creeks, they kind of do that too. That's awesome stuff, man.
but then
Yeah,
as it goes on, I focus
yeah, you
in
get
one
tighter and
spot,
tighter and tighter.
and then
Yeah.
that's where I want them to come in, and because that's what happens is that bull's cruising around calling.
Mm,
They're just walking around grunting, raking, grunting,
mm,
grating, throughout, for days, and
mm-hmm,
then they hear a cow and they come to that, and so it's just kind of that natural, because that's how they work, because that's
mm-hmm.
how a bull gets his harem is he finds one cow, and then he kind of starts staying put, and more cows come to him.
Yeah.
And that's another thing too is like if there's already cows in the area, maybe
Mhm.
not cow call a lot, because those
Mm.
cows are going to bring that bull in.
So you're kind of just staging around the cows.
Right.
Just
And
make
so it's just kind of, I mean, it's very situational.
Mhm.
You know, if you can see and you're seeing like a cow here and a cow there, you don't probably have to cow call that much. And then you wait till that bull comes into those cows. It's the best decoy you're going to have.
Right. Yeah.
And then you go in raking and grunting, and
Yeah.
you're going to pull the bull out because he's
Right.
going to defend his cows.
He's trying to fight.
Because you're not going to call a bull away with a cow call.
Mm.
Generally,
That's a good point.
because they already have their cow, and that's
Yeah.
the thing, is the cows are coming to him.
Mm-hmm. With a cow call, with your cow calling, and you're not around a lot of cows, you're trying to grab that bull that's on the hunt.
Right.
And
He's
like
gonna pick
picking
it up
yeah.
and start heading that way.
Can you give us a cow call example? Sorry to put you on the spot. Can you
Yeah.
give us a little, maybe how to kind of start, or again, guys that haven't called before?
Yeah, and so you know, you're gonna go kind of with an ah.
Okay.
And you're gonna try to get it as nasally and deep far back as you can, and helps to kind of hold your nose. And then you're gonna do about 15 seconds, and it's gonna be kind of a cadence of, you know, pardon my French, but I'm so horny.
Yeah.
That was what I was told, so that's
Yeah.
always what's in my head whenever
Alaskan guide.
I do it. So, but it's like and you don't have to throw that last little bit in there, but
That's awesome.
I
can't do that. That's good.
So, but it's
But anybody can. So that
anybody can,
so
and
like,
every moose has their own voice.
Yeah. So like I'm not as good a cow caller as Gary, but I do something similar, same kind of style, but just like he said, like kind of like just like like that's kind of how I kind of generally do
that's
it.
like, that's definitely, you'll hear cows make that sound
Yeah.
actually more than what I make.
Yeah.
Mine's just like a big long, like,
yeah.
I'm so desperate.
Right.
But then, like, if a cow's just walking, she's not too worried. She's gonna do shorter ones like that. And I've also heard them doing it to where, like, it's like multiple, like
the
in
rapid
a row,
fire.
rapid fire.
I've heard that too.
And that's the same thing with the bulls. Is normally their grunts are more of a whoa.
It's very silent. I don't know if you had the same experience, but like cows are loud when you can hear them like in the valley. Bulls can be really quiet.
They
like,
are
really
they
quiet.
are really quiet, and that's what I've noticed is, like, out in the open you can hardly hear them, but if they're in the woods, you'll hear that.
Yeah.
You'll hear it reverberate
Yeah.
off of the trees.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of that pitch or whatever,
and if
frequency just is better in the woods, in the forest, than it is out in like an open marsh or flat. Like, you won't hear it as much, but it's not it's not echoing.
Yeah.
And then the bulls will actually make kind of a very rapid fire, call it machine gun in. That's when they're hot. And
yeah,
like,
I've heard that
they're
too.
wanting to come in, so it's a
yeah, very yeah.
And that's what they're coming. When you're hearing them quick, there's no question, they're coming.
Oh, they're on their way.
They're starting to slobber. Okay. They're coming in. They're ready to fight or find a girlfriend. So.
Yeah, no, that's really, really good stuff. Yeah, I think all that information is super important for somebody who doesn't know what to listen for, because I think the first couple of years that I started guiding moose, I didn't recognize the sounds of a bull moose when I heard them. For example, you cow call, or you rake and you do this, and then you hear something in the trees back in the timber of just like a, well, if you don't know that's a bull responding to you, I can't tell you how many times I'm thinking back and I'm like, man, I bet you that was a bull back in there.
Yeah.
Until you see it and hear it and stuff. It's these little cheat codes, guys, that if you're going in the woods for the first time hunting moose, really listen and know what to listen for, because it may not sound like anything, but the smallest sound in response to your calling can be a really big bull that's just waiting to come out.
Yeah, because as big as they are, they can be pretty shy.
Yeah.
And they can be pretty quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just kind of the way they are. And the biggest thing I have to say with like moose hunting,
Mm-hmm.
for especially guys out west used to
Mm-hmm.
calling elk and stuff, is
Yeah.
you really got to be patient, and you don't know
Mm.
the calling's working until it does.
Okay.
So, and that's the thing too, is you don't, the day that you decide, well, I'm going to hike down here a mile and start calling, is the day there's going to be a bull that shows up right where
Mm.
you've been.
Yeah.
I've had buddies that's happened to where they leave a guy behind just to see what happens, and there's a 65-inch bull that walks into camp,
Yeah.
and they're a mile down there and didn't see
Or their
anything.
buddy that I've had this happen to on, DIY hunters. The old guy stays in camp.
Yep.
This is a real thing. This happens multiple times a season. The older guy stays at camp. The young bucks go run around trying to find these moose. The old guy's gathering firewood, breaking branches, which also imitates a bull in the rut. And the moose is in this guy's face, and he shoots a bull right out of camp, or
Yep.
right next to the fireplace, or right next to the camp. And that's also something that kind of is interesting, is that around camp, noise level, noise discipline, the sounds that you make are really, really important, is what I found.
It is. You never like. You don't want to really. You don't want to talk at a full voice.
That's
you
big.
don't want to be making more noise than you have to, and it's not the banging of pots or anything. Because actually, I've heard guys breaking down a tent and metal poles clanging, and here comes a bull.
Wow.
Or the story in Alaska, guys are chopping firewood. And here
Chopping
comes a
firewood,
bull.
yeah, same, has that same wood.
And so,
yeah.
but like, it's human voices, and
Mhm.
it's our voices travel much further than we think they do, especially if you're hunting around a lake, or if you're hunting kind of in the open. Your
Mhm.
voices travel. Those bulls have big old megaphones on their.
Do you, speaking of camp, because we're talking camp, so say you want to call, do you want to call right around camp, or is it situational? Or do you want to call away from camp to try to protect your camp and your scent? Or I mean, I've done it both ways, based on the clients, based on the
See,
topography.
it's all about topography, really.
Okay.
For me, if I'm, I mean, I have no problem calling from camp,
Mm.
but that's going to be more of my cow calls.
Yeah, okay.
Just to get them in the area. Like, generally in the mornings, I may wait for my cow call when I get to where I want to start hunting from, so that way, if you do, because I've had it where that first cow call in the morning, all of a sudden there's a bull just steps out of the trees.
Mm.
That type of thing. But I don't mind calling from camp, and because that's the thing, is like, when I'm walking in the mornings too, I'm scraping my call. My call's always in my hand. I'm touching trees. I'm doing
Good tip. Yeah, that's a really
'cause
good
it's
tip.
kinda,
So
I'm already making noise, right? Walking.
yeah.
And so this way I'm making noise that they will transfer and say bull.
You're imitating a
And
moose.
so then they're gonna start calling back at you while you're walking, and it's like,
So that's essentially what. That's a really, really good tip. So oftentimes, if you're whitetail hunting or mule deer hunting or whatever it is, you're really taught to be quiet in the woods. And what Gary is saying is, in moose country, sometimes you need to be loud in the woods, because a bull that's got a 65-inch rack on his head is not quiet all the time. And especially if that bull is in any kind of pre-rut type attitude, he's going to be making noise as he goes along. And that's kind of how it happens. So sometimes from point A to point B, you want to be making noise, especially if you're calling.
yep.
If you're going from calling spot to maybe you're going to go to this other knob over there and call, you want to still imitate you're a big bull that's on the move and make noise along the way. If you make a bunch of noise and are dead silent, or make human noise of like rain gear hitting brush, or backpacks and clanging rifles, it's not going to help you keep that bull interested. That's not going to help you keep him around. Whereas if you keep calling and kind of keep making moose sounds, you may actually attract him all the way there. And that happened to me one time. We lost a bull and a bunch of cows. I had no idea where I was, and I was like, man. And we were literally walking back to camp, and it was going to be a long hike, and I was just doing that, touching stuff on my way, because I was like, man, they were over here somewhere. They just had wandered off a few hundred yards, but in moose country, you could be, I mean, a few hundred yards sometimes is like the difference of never seeing them ever again, because some of that thick timber they get into. Sure enough, just touching branches with my paddle or whatever I had at the time, and he responded, and I'm like, dude, he's here. And all of a sudden, at 25 yards away, we had a bull down in 10 minutes, and an hour ago I was like, we're done, we lost him.
Yeah.
It's all done.
Yeah, and that's another thing is like, depending upon where you're hunting, different topography and stuff.
Mhm.
You know, you'll be in some higher brush, some alders or whatever, where it's chest high,
Yeah,
even waist high, and you got a bull laying down in that,
right.
and you're walking,
Yeah.
and because you might be on a circuit calling, or you may be going to a different knob or whatever, and you do that, that bull's gonna stand up.
Yeah, no, that's great.
And I've had that happen before too, where it's just like I'm calling, all of a sudden, like walking, I'm just scraping lightly here and there, and along the way there's a bull that stands up 100 yards away. He wasn't the bull we were after, but I mean, it's still like, there he is.
There he is. Yeah.
It's amazing how easily.
And
such
he
a
would have
big
probably
animal,
stayed bedded if you would have just walked through.
Yeah,
You know,
he
you
would
probably
have.
wouldn't
He
have saw
wasn't
him.
going to jump up and run.
Well, that's really, really high end calling advice, high end moose hunting tactic advice from the best moose hunting guy that I know. He's far better than me at calling and just approach overall. Another kind of set of questions I'd like to ask you, Gary, is that just moose judging in general. So if you're in an area where it's specifically 50 inches or 3 or 4 brow tines, because that's what we're relegated to as non-residents and non-resident hunters, is that we have size restrictions in a lot of the areas in Alaska. So is there anything that you kind of gauge, or maybe a first reaction or first impression that can kind of give you an idea what you're looking at?
Yeah, so there's I mean, if I'm glassing and I'm glassing up bulls, the first thing I'm looking for is the brow tines. That's the easiest way to judge. I mean, that's the thing is, I've been doing this a long time. I've seen a lot of bulls. I've had a lot of bulls on the ground, and so I have a better idea of that. But if you're new to it, my suggestion is look at brow tines first.
Brow tines.
Even if you call them in, you're gonna have some time, and if they're at 50 yards, look for the brow tines. If they've got the brow tines, that's the easier way.
Because there's some areas in Alaska that have 3 brow tine restrictions or 4 brow tine restrictions. So you're looking for brow tines as it is defined in the Alaska fishing game regulations, hunting regulations, is measurable points coming off the front brow palm, and there's a bay, and you can read it in there. There's a bay that separates it for the rest of the time. So you're really trying to judge, and it's on one side.
On one side.
So it only needs to meet the requirement for moose on one side. So it doesn't have to have 4 and 4 or 3 and 3 if you're in a 3 area. You just have to have 4 legal measurable points on one side in the brow palm to be legal to kill. And it doesn't have to be 50 inches.
Yep, if you have the
correct?
brow tines, it doesn't have to be 50.
So that's another thing. You don't have to meet both requirements. You just have to meet one. It's got to be over 50, or it has to have 3 or 4 brow tines depending on the area. And there are areas that we hunt in areas in Alaska that are actually any bull areas, and there's no brow tine restrictions. So what about measuring, just give an idea for width, at first glance, or how do you go about, you see a big bull, for example, and he's got 2 brow tines or 1 brow tine. He's got big old hooks. He's kind of weird, but you think he may be legal, or you want to take a closer look. What are your first methods of going about that?
So I'm looking at paddle width and how they lay. So that's
Okay.
the tricky part. Some bulls will lay flat, like just real flat, so where you got 2 big white paddles looking at you. Others are going to be cupped.
Okay.
And so if it looks like the paddles aren't laying real flat, those can be tricky bulls because they have good bone.
They're
They
big,
have
they're mature bulls, yep.
but they're cupped. And then that's the thing, is that's when you got to really take a much closer look at and really try to say, is that 50 inches? And that's the thing, is you're not wanting to shoot a bull that you think is 50 inches.
That's a good point.
1 or 2 inches is very hard to judge.
Yeah.
Even at 10, 15 yards. You're actually wanting to look and say, is that bull 60 inches?
Okay.
And you say, no, he's not 60, but he's over 50. But
Right.
that's how I look for 60-inch bulls. One, that's generally what we're going for.
Yeah,
as
it's a
guides.
trophy bull. Yep.
But 2, that's just kind of something like giving yourself some padded room. If you're like, that's 50 inches, that's 2 inches bigger than a sheet of plywood.
Right.
That really, like who?
Yeah, you're not going to bet your whole hunt on that and potentially
And
be in trouble
yeah.
for shooting a sublegal moose. Is there do you ever use like eyes? You know, there's certain measurements that are kind of like the eyes are, they say, are 8 to 9 inches apart, or certain things. Is there anything that you look for?
So the thing I really have decided like really is a key factor to me is you can try to do the face like the
Yeah,
what is it, the face times 2 on each side.
right.
That'll put you right around 50.
Yep.
And
Like the basically like outside the eyes is what you say. Face is like that measurement, and then double. Like so, 5 total. Typically, it's around 10 inches.
yeah, and
8 to 10 inches.
but I look at the bases, how long the bases are.
Okay, so the base is
So
coming
yeah,
out of the
like
skull.
if you have a good amount coming out away
Mm-hmm.
to where their ears aren't covering any of the paddle, that's generally a pretty good, like
Mm-hmm.
that's a good bull.
A good sign.
Yeah,
as,
it's a
as
good
like
sign
a good.
that it's a better bull when his ears aren't covering the paddles, because again,
Mm,
those ears are about a foot long,
right.
10 to 12 inches.
What
And I'm
what about sorry to cut you off, but what about like brow tines, or not brow tines, I'm sorry, palm tines.
yeah,
So you have brow tines that are up front that you measure for legality, but if you're going on width alone, there are palm tines. There's
yeah,
tines of the moose.
and it's also you
Because
kind
that
of you
counts in your measurement as well. They're not, it's the
yeah,
widest point.
yeah,
So
and that's part of it too. Is again, like we're talking about the cupped bulls.
right, because they're cupped in.
Sometimes those tines will kind of curve more forward.
Right.
Sometimes they'll lay out. Sometimes you'll have a bull with 2 really long tines.
Yeah.
And that's like I've seen bulls that went 70 inches, but they're really only about 60 inches wide.
Right, but they just have the tine
They
that
have
goes
those
straight
2
out.
tines that give them an
Mm-hmm.
extra 5 inches on each side.
Yeah.
And so it's just really biggest thing is like look at a lot of bulls. Like
Mm-hmm.
get on the internet, look at a lot of
Oh, good.
bulls.
Yeah. Good idea.
See what a lot of people are posting, shooting legal bull wise, and make non-residents up
Mm-hmm.
here. And see what they're doing, because that's the thing is it's a matter of like imagining that bull in that picture when it's standing out in the field and say that looks like a really good bull.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're going to have bulls that don't have much width in the paddles, and that's going to take away from their overall.
Yeah, they're
And
overall.
some are going to be cupped, but they're going to have a lot of bone and be real tall and look real big, especially if it's the first bull you've seen. And
Right. Yeah, you can kind of get that first impression. Well, this is a giant bull, but he may not meet legal requirements. So, just to sum it up, you're looking, if you're going looking for a legal bull, you're going first looking at brow tines and whatever area you're in, whatever
right,
legal requirement is met. You're looking at brow tines first. And then if that doesn't meet the requirement, but you still think he might be over or legal with the width, you're looking for a 60-inch type bull. And some of the signs are his ears are not shielded by his paddles. He's got a lot of width coming out from his actual skull with the bases. You're looking for a bull that lays flatter with his palms, flatter with his tines, and just has an overall more mature lot of width and lays a little flatter. You can see more bone.
yeah.
You're doing the head width measurement a couple of times, maybe you're kind of cross-referencing some stuff, and you're really just generally looking for a 60 type inch bull.
Yeah, and the big thing there too, just to tell people, is you don't want to judge a bull walking away.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Never
Mule deer too. I mean,
never
yeah,
judge them from behind.
never
Because
judge it
they're
from behind.
always going to look bigger.
Good. Yeah, that's a
Because
really
I've
good
done it
advice.
where I've been looking at a bull and I'm like, no, he's not there, and then he's walking away, and even though I know he's not there, I'm like, man, he looks better there.
Yeah,
But that's the
yeah.
thing, is if he's looking better from behind than he was on the front, like he's
Yeah.
don't let that persuade you, because that could get you in trouble.
One thing too that I'd like to add before we go into meat care, we're gonna wrap it up with meat care and just kind of how you treat the moose after the kill. But I always found, Gary, and I don't know if this is the same for you, is trust your instincts. So it's like that first impression, legal or not, like without getting excited. Like usually my first instinct on a moose, especially if I'm going off width alone, usually is the right call.
Yeah, and that's
And I'm not talking about excited. I'm just
right.
saying mature bull, he looks wider than 50, but let's not get excited. You have that series of like, all right, let's look at him more. He's not legal until he is type attitude.
Right.
But I know, like, okay, that first impression of this bull or that bull is like, okay, he's good. But then you go through your steps. It's not a very fast, spur of the moment reaction, especially if you haven't looked at a lot of bulls. You kind of got to go through and make sure you're shooting a legal bull. So let's jump right into meat care, Gary, because that's the biggest factor in moose hunting, and what prevents a lot of people shooting moose in certain areas is just the amount of work it takes to shoot a moose. So where are you looking to shoot a moose? Where are your limitations of shooting moose? Is the steps that you take after the moose is killed, and how do you keep the meat and everything in the right form and fashion without getting in trouble?
Right.
Because wanton waste is a big deal in Alaska. Wanton waste is essentially you mistreat the moose meat, you mistreat any meat, or you don't take enough, you don't salvage enough. Salvage requirements are very big in Alaska, and you get in big time trouble. So as guides, we have to really understand this and follow it to a T, and Gary's the best that I know at what he does. So yeah, give us an idea of what we're looking at.
So first and foremost is you got to know your limitations, and you got to know where to shoot them, because guys have gotten themselves in trouble a lot in Alaska shooting a bull, but not then like getting up there and being just overwhelmed.
Yeah,
that's too far out. They're by themselves. They now have a 1,200-pound animal on the ground, and that they have to deal with by themselves. They're 3 miles away. It's terrible country to walk in, whatever, and they have to get this all back to where it can get picked up.
They overestimated or underestimated how hard it was going to be.
And so just kind of, you got to be responsible enough to shoot a bull where you can physically get it out.
Know your physical capabilities. That's step one.
And then after that, you're trying to shoot them right behind the shoulder, just like you would a whitetail or an elk or anything like that. You can break the front shoulder if you want to, but I would say right behind the shoulder. You're saving some meat there.
Yep.
And don't be afraid to put more than one in it. Especially if they're coming to a call, they'll soak up lead. They're not going to just tip over.
Right.
A lot of times that first one, they'll run 5 yards and stop again and put another one right in the, again.
Don't stop until they're down.
Yeah.
Kind of deal.
Nice thing about moose is they do have a very large kill area just because their organs are so big. They have big lungs, big heart. So just get it in the Boilermaker and give them a couple extra if need be. And nobody likes to see an animal suffer either.
Right.
So
That's a good point. What about the bull hits the dirt? Let's talk. How do you go about quartering the moose, and then in grizzly country, give us a quick rundown before we wrap this up about kind of just general principles, general common sense moves that you personally do or have learned over the years guiding when a moose hits the dirt. What do you do?
So when a moose hits the dirt, get to work. It doesn't matter if it's just got dark. You can't. It's not a situation where you just gut it and come back the next day. This is something where you have to go ahead and get this animal apart.
Yep.
You can sleep in the next day and come back and start packing it out, but you need to get it apart because it will start to rot. Even if it's cold outside and you have it opened up, but those two hams are so heavy and tight that it's retaining that heat. And
it's not a whitetail.
No, it's not a whitetail. And a lot of times it's not just freezing cold here, like when you're shooting. So 30 degrees is not cold enough to chill that whole moose down because they're so big. So first off is just know that as soon as you kill that moose, you need to get to work.
Right.
And I like to do my bulls one half at a time. I'll take off the front shoulder, back strap, hind quarter, some neck meat, first. And then
what do you do? Do you hang them or do you lay them in the brush and aerate them?
It depends upon what I got around me.
Okay, so
if I got some good trees around me, I'll make a meat pole, and I'll make
tie it, like cut a pine tree and make a meat pole, tie it between two pine trees.
And then I'll do that away from where I'm going to leave the guts.
Oh, good tip. So he's moving his meat, the meat of the moose, away from the gut pile. to prevent.
And it may only be 50 yards.
Prevent grizzlies. Is that
just,
the idea?
Yeah, it's just to get it away.
Yep. Good tip.
So I'll move it away because the guts are going to be the smelliest. I don't care if they have the guts.
And we're not legally required to salvage the guts. The gut pile you can leave there. So that's
and also,
the one thing.
And also, you're trying to get, and also if you kill that bull, it dies in a brushy area, but there's a more open spot within a couple 100 yards. I like to get my meat there so I can see it as I'm walking in, as I'm packed to pick up a load to pack it out.
For safety, in case grizzlies are on it, you want to be able to visibly see the meat and see if there's anything on that meat, or you can see if maybe a hindquarter is laying over there, drug off where you're like, okay, guys, let's take a second, let's get upwind, let's make sure we make some noise and approach this meat with full caution, usually a gun in hand or something like that.
Right. And so and that's the common sense part, is trying to move it away. Because I mean, that's the thing, that where you're taking care of this moose is going to be blood and guts.
Right.
And that's going to smell a lot worse, or maybe a lot better to a bear than the meat will. So you're going to move that out, move it in a more open spot, move it to where you can hang it. If I've done it multiple ways, but as long as that meat is up off the ground, you might cut some
in a game bag.
In game bags.
Yep.
Get them off the ground so the air can get to them and cool them off. And it may be cutting a few small pines, spruce trees, if that's all around, and kind of making kind of a log cabin out of it, just to get them off the ground and air can flow. And then I've also done it where there's been a big spruce tree and I'm able to tie it off into the branches in the spruce tree, just to where it's enough off the ground and they're not laying on each other. And then the big thing too is if you're leaving it overnight, then you want to go ahead and wrap it, or not wrap it in a tarp, but cover it.
Yeah,
loosely.
So get it under a tarp so rain. So
you don't necessarily want that tarp to be directly on the meat.
Yeah,
either.
You don't want the tarp touching the meat.
And so what I'll do, because is I'll put the rack on top, over the meat, and then I'll put the tarp over that, so there's
some airflow.
And that's the big thing, is airflow. To cool stuff off and to keep it fresh. And
that's great. That's awesome tip. So you're going, moose hits there, get to work, get it quartered and gutted no matter what, get it all the salvageable meat up and off the ground in the environment that's most efficient where you're at. So if there's pine trees, or if there's just brush, alders, whatever you can do to get up off the ground, in game bags, and then tarped. And then you're tactically doing this and you're thinking ahead, and you're not going into the black and just laying the meat anywhere. You're thinking well ahead, and you're going, I'm going to move the meat to this spot, wherever is the most conducive to a safe approach to dry and healthy meat. So that's good. And then obviously you pack it back to camp and it gets flown out and everybody has a good day. But that's a great stuff, Gary. Thank you so much for sharing with us. You really, I learned something from talking to you right now, and I appreciate it. So it's good for all you guys out there that are potentially going on a DIY moose hunt or a guided moose hunt. Hit us up in the comments below. We love moose hunting. We're super passionate about it. We love answering any questions, help you guys be successful and prevent any kind of problems out there in the woods. And I hope you guys have an awesome hunt in Alaska. Thank you, Gary.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Thanks for having me here.
Tagged out.
We're all done.
It smells like grizzly bear meat.